Well, you know what time it is.
All right, everybody, welcome to the channel. Today we are doing our live stream. This is my automotive channel, guys. I am working on the second channel. I have some videos that I'm going to be showing some of my producer and kind of going over what our course of direction is going to be, where we're going to post our videos, stuff like that. So that's going to be a much deeper topic, but know that we're working on it and know that we are bringing that channel. So guys, that channel can be found at The Cross Today if you are on YouTube. And I will be looking at going on to X and probably Facebook. I don't know if I'm going to do Instagram, and I probably should do TikTok, but that's stuff that I will definitely consider later on. Just checking a few things, seeing who's made it in. All right, so today our main topic is actually, hold up. Guys, let's start this off right. Guys, welcome to the channel. As always, let me start off with the announcements. Guys, we've been doing really good. We've been getting a lot of subscribers lately. Things have been rolling in the right direction. I've made a few changes. You guys might notice of a little bit visual differences. There was one main one up here that I had to get rid of because it was hurting my views. So I got rid of that one. I'm hoping to kind of clean this up a little bit more over the next couple weeks and kind of bring you guys a very clean looking stream. I do want the topic to always be shown down below so that you guys know what that topic is. Also, I don't want to have to keep saying this, so I'd rather have it on screen. So we're going to play around with those as much as we can for the future. As always, guys, make sure you guys are hitting the like button, hitting the subscribe button. Consider clicking that join button for as little as $3 a month. You guys can join the channel and you'll get early access to topics. This week, people knew that the topic was going to be on mud flaps before I even put anything out. The reason for that is I want to get my members ahead of the game. And as we get more members in some of the higher level areas, I'm going to be doing special streams just for those members. They're paying the higher dollar amount. They deserve to have kind of a special stream. Some of it will be a Q&A session only with those particular members. Also, they will be able to ask more technical questions that we will work to find answers for. All right, let's go ahead and transition into today's topic. All right, so today's topic is mud flaps. Let's cover a little bit before I start working on these things. Now, everyone might say that this is a very basic install, and the truth is it really can be. But some of the manufacturers that make these things, they make it more difficult. And I will be covering that in just a little bit. But let's cover why we put these on. Number one, especially on vehicles like this, there's a wire harness that hides behind that rear bumper. If we don't put mud flaps on this vehicle, what happens is all that mud flings and all the dirt and sand flings up behind the bumper. All that sand up in there gets into the wiring harness and can short out the wiring. In order to preserve this vehicle for much longer, this is a mod that you can do in your own driveway that will help keep that vehicle alive a lot longer. Not only that, but all that, if you live in a climate that has a rough winter, snow, ice, mud, all of that stuff can get stuck behind that bumper and start pulling that bumper down. It can do damage to the panels. Not only that, but it can also wreck other things that are back there. It can even rust out frames quicker because all that mud will get stuck to the frames. The best thing you can do is mud flaps and undercoating to protect the value of what you have. Every vehicle I have goes through an undercoating process. I first take it to a place to have them undercoat it. I then come back and spray a wax into some of the tougher areas after I've cleaned it out. And then I also reapply a bed liner undercoating, meaning that I'll put bed liner on it to put a stiff coating and lock in that oil rubberized seal to the frame. What that does is really deeply protects the frame. Guys, I had Crimson Vortex for almost 4 years. We will be getting rid of that vehicle at some point on this channel. I've got too many vehicles. I will need to clean house at some point. And when I clean house, we're going to be left with Champagne Bubbles, Big Red, and LS Goat. LS Goat, you guys have not seen yet because I am so stacked in projects right now, I don't have time. Guys, I need to put headlights on Champagne Bubbles. I need to do that video for you. We got to finish this so I can give this back to the customer. And there's a ton of stuff to do on it. Plus, we got Big Red, which I got to do everything I'm doing on this and more to Big Red. So there's a bunch of different projects coming. So much in the works right now for the channel. Some of them I'm going to do at the same time. So if I have to do a throttle body on this one, I'm probably going to do it on Big Red also. They're both at the 100K service mark, and this one isn't driving every day, but Big Red is. So that's what I got going for that. Check here. All right. Cool, cool. Let's go ahead and transition in. Let me grab these flaps. All right, so these are our mud flaps. These are supposed to be no drill mud flaps, meaning that they're supposed to use existing hardware to mount these. That's right. These don't fit like they're supposed to. So on this one right here, this is the rear flap. What I had to do with this rear flap, it's going to be very hard for you guys to see it, but I had to press this flap in and make marks in it because the holes don't line up. I've already done that, and I'll show you guys how to do that when we get back there, but I'm going to go ahead and put the holes in this right now. I'll show you guys how I do this. This is a very simple process. Actually, it's kind of funny how we do this. We could break out a drill, and we could really go at this. We could just sit here and grind away, get through it, and quickly mount this. The only problem is we lose finesse and precision when we break out the drill. So I use a ratchet with a drill bit that has the hex side on the bottom of it. Most of your drill bits will have the hex. And you can use a 1/4 inch drive socket on a 1/4 drive ratchet to put a hole in this. So what I do is I line up where my mark was, and then I just twist the drill bit into it. Again, we're having to redo these holes because they didn't drill them right. They're not properly lined up. As you guys can see, there's 2 holes. Right there. I'll make it to where you guys can see it easier. 2 holes. So the smaller one is the one I'm drilling. And the reason I'm doing this is because when I placed this onto the rear quarter on the other side of the vehicle, none of my holes lined up. I couldn't mount the mud flaps without putting holes into the flap. What I'm doing is once I get the drill bit through, I just rub the drill bit to bore out the hole a little bit. This is what we have to do when they say no drill and they put the holes in the wrong spot. We're also going to be cutting some of the coil shields on the newer style 5.3 Vortec engines. For whatever reason, they thought that they would put beauty covers over the coil packs. Apparently, they feel that the mechanical portions of a car are ugly, so we're going to put covers on them. Well, when they put the covers on them, they made them so tight that they're a problem to get off of the vehicle. So we're going to trim them so that they snap on cleanly and we can remove them quickly without having to break anything. So now that I've got all these, I've got the 3 along the side. This one I have to drill from underneath. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring you guys back. We're going to mount the 3 that hold this into place, and then we can see where we need to put this one on the bottom. And we do have to put these in place, because if we leave this loose, this one here could flap and get caught by the tire and just tear this up. We don't want that. We need these to stay in good shape, because these are going to take a lot of abuse. All the mud, rocks, garbage is going to get slung against these and not the body of the vehicle. So what we will need is a 7mm socket to remove those bolts. And then we will have to obviously drill our hole into our panel. Had to make sure I picked up the cord here. I want to bring you guys in close enough that you guys can see what's going on while I do this process. It's good to have you guys in here on this Sunday. We do this every Sunday at 3 p.m. This is our project portion. Guys, we also do news at 7 p.m. on Sundays as well. So that's when we do our news portion. All right, I'll bring you guys down, show you guys the projects. All right, so trying to get it to where you don't get any weird shadows. So that looks pretty good. What we're going for is our mounting bolts that are right here. There's going to be 3 of them that we need to remove out of the bumper. So we're going to start by removing these 3 bolts. Keep you guys far enough back that it doesn't get in the way. So with basic hand tools, you guys can do this in your driveway, whether you live in an apartment, whether you live in a house and you only got a small garage or you got no garage. You can do this in your own driveway. You can buy these on Amazon. That's where I buy a lot of these parts, as I get them off of Amazon. But we do need to remove 3 of these bolts. These have to come out because that is where the mounting goes for our mud flap. On the front, it's a little different. We turn the wheels to give us more access and more room. Back here, we're just using a ratchet with a socket because we can get in here and do this without having to take the wheel off. I do this to show you guys that you can do this without having to take a bunch of stuff apart. Now, if you go to a shop, they might pull the wheels because in their mind, if they have to drill anything, it's quicker for them to remove the wheel. But this is not always the case. Just because you take the wheel off doesn't mean that it's going to be quicker. Sometimes it means that you just have more stuff you have to do. Because when you take a wheel off, you have to re-torque that wheel. So that's another added process that you have to do. Here's our mud flap. We've already drilled these holes out, so I'm going to line up the first one here and set this in and get the bolt started on the top. Now, I don't want to go tight with this. I just want to get it in far enough that it's somewhat holding this in place. If I go tight with this, what can happen is if I do need to make any minor movements, I won't be able to. So next I'm going to go for the lower one here, and then I'll do the middle one. That way if I have to jostle this around or if I have to fight with it, it's not going to be so bad to do. Try to do is make sure that I get all of these somewhat tight. Once I got them all in, the first step is getting them in though. So this side went in a little easier than the other side because how I did this was I left the bolts on. I put the mud flap over the top of the head of the bolt and I pressed the plastic over the bolt. What it did is it left a mark in the plastic of where I needed to put that hole. When you guys saw me drilling that hole, I had already pressed it against the head of the bolts before I even removed any of the bolts. And this was done to mark where I needed those holes. Because had I not marked them, I would not have been able to get this flap on there. Now, one thing you're noticing, I'm not really cranking this ratchet down tight, because if I get too carried away, I could strip these out, and I don't want to strip them out. My goal is to go tight enough that they hold and that the bumper is not flexing too much, but just to make sure that the flap is on there. Now, we still have this inside piece that isn't attached. We need to take care of that right now. And this is where sometimes they would remove this wheel in order to gain access to it. We're not going to do that. We're going to use a different trick. That trick is going to be that we're going to come from underneath on the back side so that inside here, right here, inside here, we'll see where we need to drill that hole. And we'll drill the hole through this plastic / cloth wheel liner. That wheel liner will give us what we need to put a bolt through there. That way we can secure that back side. All right, it's good to have you guys in here on this Saturday. What I'm getting now is the hardware that I need to put this together. So I'm working on this right now so that I can do this one for you guys. This is one of the things that you want to make sure you have everything you need before you get started. Because the last thing you want to do is jump up and have to do a bunch of different things. So you're better off having everything you need before you go and lay down to do this job. So one thing I'm going to use is I'm going to use my rolling cart. I'm also going to use that same drill bit, socket, and my clip that's going to hold the back side of that mud flap. What I'm going to do is I'm going to crawl underneath here. And I'm going to reach in and find where I need that hole to be in the plastic wheel liner. Again, this is a plastic / cloth wheel liner. So what I did is I went completely through both the wheel liner and the mud flap. I just remade a new hole. And my purpose for that was to put it in a better spot that it'll hold tighter. And I will show you guys that here in just a second once I get Okay, so the only thing left is for me to tighten this up. And there is a clip that I have to hold on to from the back side, so just going to tighten this up quick. Okay, so this clip is not working with me, so I'm going to switch up and find the proper hardware to do this. I want to make sure I got good hardware on the back side holding tight. I don't want this coming loose. This could be one of these spots where if it comes loose, it'll just tear everything up in here. So let's take a little time and get the right hardware here. Thank you guys for being in here on this Sunday. We do this every Sunday at 3 p.m. Make sure you guys hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Consider hitting that join button. Really does kind of help the channel grow. It does help us to get more videos out to you guys. So now I got the right I'm going to show you guys everything once I get this tight. But this is kind of a difficult area to be in, so I'm going to get everything tight before I bring you guys down and show you guys what's going on here. So I will show you guys just a bit here what we're looking at. Put some of these tools up. Whenever you guys work in a tight area, make sure you guys aren't scratching vehicles or banging stuff against the side of the cars. Paint is not very forgiving. And if you start hitting things against the paint of the car, your vehicle is going to get scratched up really quick. All right. So let's bring you guys in for the final view here. Now I know some of this is because this is a black vehicle with black mud flaps, so kind of hard to see. But we've got 3 bolts here, here, and down here. We also have one through in here. So there's one right up here by my finger. We drilled that hole and we ran a clip. Yeah, it's difficult to see, guys. But we ran a clip on this back side here. So that clip, what that did was held these 2 pieces together. It held through the wheel liner and through the mud flap to pinch that in so that the inside of this flap right here, the inside of this, will not get hooked on that tire. Because if it gets hooked on the tire for any reason, it's just going to tear everything up. So this is our back one. You guys can, a little difficult to see with the lighting. Tried to get as much on there as we could. We're going to hopefully get some better lighting when we do the front one here. So up here we've got a little bit better lighting. We're going to pull this one, and one more that's down here. What that will do is give us the mounting that we need. Just trying to move a few more things here to make it a little easier for me to get in and out of here. All right, so we've got this one. This is going to be a T15. So all of our mounting bolts for our front are a T15. There are 3 of them. They are positioned in a very difficult location. Without turning the wheel, you would have to take this wheel off. But because we've turned the wheel, we've given ourselves access at these 3 T15s. So I'm going to move you guys back. We're saving our hardware because we're going to use the hardware. We're going to use these T15s on the new one. These we will no longer use. These we can throw away. This is what they considered a mud flap for these vehicles from the factory. These are not mud flaps. These are just plastic shields that keep this edge from getting scratched by rocks. Our mud flap will do that now. So next we got to go for the one that's in here. anytime you're removing torques, these torque bits, make sure that the heads of them are cleaned out. If they are not, use a pick tool and scratch them clean because you do not want to round these off. A T15 is really small and can strip out very easily. So I usually try to clean the head of these out really well so I don't have any problems with them. Otherwise, what happens is they get filled with gunk, and as soon as you stick the bit in there, all it does is round it out. Now, from the other side, I can tell you right now, this one is going to fight me. Because when I did the other side, I had to wrestle it into place. I should not have to do these if these were quality. Again, these were not quality. These were cheap Amazon ones, but they do the job. What I learned about the other side is that I put all the bolts in loose, and I do mean all of them. So again, I'm not going to go tight with any of them. I want them all to be loose, and I want to get them all started. Now, one thing I noticed is that I needed to do the bottom one. So I had to do this one that was inside first because it was so much harder to get to. And I couldn't get the flap to go where I wanted it to. When I had the middle one in. Also, you may need a flashlight for this job. Try to move you guys inside here so you guys can see me kind of struggle to line this one up. So it's this one right here that we're trying to line up. Sometimes we can get this one to line up if we get this pushed into place. But like I said, I know that when I had the middle one in on the other side, when I did those, I couldn't get this one in. So I got this one lightly started out here. Now I can kind of wiggle this around a bit until I can get the bolt in it. Not putting this inside one in, it will tear this mud flap off. So that inside one has to be put on there. You have to have all three of these on. If you strip one of these out, you can't just not put one in it. You have to put it in. My goal is to make sure that these are all tight so I don't have to mess with these again, but I don't want to strip these out. So those are tight. They're in there where they need to be. And this is what that mud flap looks like when it's on the vehicle. What this does is protects all of this. So all this kick up that you guys may see on camera, it's really hard to see all the kick up here, but there is dirt slung all along the side of this vehicle. And you can see it kicked up. This is because there was no mud flap on here. Now with the mud flap, they won't get this stuff. If they go through quite a bit or go through heavy rains, you might get some stuff sitting on the top of this step, but nothing like what's on here now. There is a lot on there. This thing needs a really good wash in order to get this stuff off. I only touched the chrome because the chrome does not scratch as easy. If I touched the paint and I did that, I would scratch that paint. Again, anytime you have a black vehicle, try to avoid touching it because the touching can actually scratch the paint. So we try to avoid that at all costs. All right, bringing you guys back around here. All right, so our mud flaps are installed on our Tahoe. This is a really good thing to do. It helps protect the vehicle, helps with the longevity, helps keep mud, dirt, dust, all the contaminants off of the paint. Guys, I could go into a million reasons why this is a much needed mod. But the truth is, once you have them on a vehicle and you drive it with them on the vehicle, you will always want to have mud flaps on. It saves you so much time even cleaning up the paint. So I'm not going to straighten out the wheel because we've got one more project I want to do today. Today might be a little bit shorter one. Tomorrow or next week, Sunday, guys, it's going to be very, very labor intensive. It's going to be a big, big project day next Sunday. Next Sunday, I'm bringing Big Red in, and we are going to next Sunday, we're going to bring Big Red in, and we're going to do a throttle body cleaning. Also, we're going to do the relearn on one of them. I won't do it on both because I'm not going to bore you guys with the details, but there's a GM procedure that you need to do to relearn the throttle body. It's very specific on what you need to do. I will cover that next week. For the rest of this week, let's go ahead and talk about our wonderful coil pack covers. Why are these off? This vehicle's getting coils. Why? Because it's got 100,000 miles on it. The cycle life for coils is about 100,000 miles, after which you should be putting a coil on the vehicle. Doesn't matter if it's this one over here, or any of them. 100,000 miles, they should get coils. That being said, this one has a little bit of overgrowth on the back side. When we go to snap this on, part of this gets stuck. We're going to fix that right now. So you guys might see some lines that I drew here. I can't overcut this whole area because if I overcut this, I'll get rid of the post hole that holds this onto place. So I can't just trim all of that off. But I do need to get rid of this fat section down here because this makes it almost impossible to pull that cover out. So what I usually do is I find that edge point and I start cutting this cover. Now, this is just a beauty cover, guys. We can trim and cut as much off of this as we want, as long as we don't trim in a bad spot where we're going to notice it. So you guys are going to see me make a bunch of little cuts so that I can get the cut desired that I want. Now, at some point, cutting into this gets too tough and we start cracking this. I don't want to crack on this upper side here. So what I do is reposition and I take a chunk out like so. What this does is allows me to keep a straight, clean cut. I want to keep this cut as clean as possible. I'm not going to see this cut, but I don't want it to crack into an area where I will see it. Okay. So here is our trimmed out piece. What this does is allows me to snap this cover on without having to fish that down behind there. Now, what I could do is if I really wanted to get technical with this, is I could trim part of this corner as well. And I might do that because what that would do is give me just a little bit more clearance when I'm snapping the cover on. The major issue is this big lip that I just sheared off. This big lip is what holds that cover from coming up. And when you go to take your covers off, you're going to notice this. That's going to be one area that you're going to fight. But I'm going to trim this up so that I don't have any of those problems snapping this cover on. Might be asking, how many times have I done coils that I've had to trim these up? Quite a bit. So when I trim this, I try to trim it as clean as I can without any sharp edges. People will grab onto these, so I don't want to have sharp edges. If I do have some sharp edges, like I have one right where my thumb is, then I will take and kind of clean it up with the cutting tool just to smooth out that edge so that the next person that grabs it isn't going to cut themselves. Again, we don't want people to hurt themselves, and you might be the next person working on the vehicle. So take the extra time needed to trim it right, making sure there is no sharp edges or any burrs sticking out that are going to cut people. So this is a nice clean cut. This will snap down into place, and I won't have this big ugly piece keeping me from putting the cover on. The one on the passenger side is a lot worse. This one, you struggle to get it off. The passenger side is absolutely horrible, and we do take a rather big cut out of the back side of this one. This piece is too big. GM could have very easily trimmed this out. You can't see this. This goes against the firewall. So I have a big chunk of plastic in the way when we're doing coils. Not necessary. This isn't going to protect the coils. This This is a beauty cover. It only hides the coils. You could technically leave these covers off. On my own personals, I have left the covers off. For customers, I put them back on. But I do need to trim this one up so that it's nice and clean and easy to snap the cover on. This one, you guys are going to see me take a lot more pieces out than the other one. The other one, I don't have to take as many pieces out. This one, I do. Trying to trim this up cleanly so that I can get a good cut on it. Don't want to have a bunch of stuff that's going to snap and break off. So I'm just taking my time to cut sections of this out. Okay, so we got a rather large chunk missing out of the back of this, but this cut isn't clean. By any means, this cut is actually pretty dirty. And I'm still debating on this tab here, if I want this tab to go away, because again, this snaps in like this. This is all on the back side. We won't see this. So I might decide to trim this out a little bit farther. Okay. Now what this does is gives me room to snap this cover on without having it bind against the firewall. There's also coolant lines that come really tight right here. These coolant lines we can't move unless we drain the coolant and disconnect the hoses. We don't do aggressive repairs like this. We do them if they're necessary, but we don't do them on a maintenance item. There's no point in getting super aggressive with our maintenance and then causing more problems. So I am working my way around this now. Okay, so we have now trimmed this cleanly. I got a little bit of this foam to clean up, so now that I've cut this out, I'm just going to take my shears along the foam, clean this out the rest of the way. So there, now we've cleaned this out. And as you can see, this is what you're going to see it like when it's in the vehicle. You're not going to see this because the firewall is here. This is what that trim looks like when you're done. What this allows you to do is slide the cover in, snap it down, and it's hidden by the firewall. This is nothing more than a cover. We trim this to give us access. That way we don't have to peel a bunch of this stuff apart. Also, we can still keep the covers without having to take a bunch of, like I said, needless things apart. I'll show you guys here in just a second what I'm talking about, why we trim these. Trying to clean up my mess a little bit before I get too carried away. All right, I had to clean up the plastic because I got to move everything over for you guys. So now that I've done that, I can move you guys over. I want to show you guys those two lines that I was talking about. These two lines are the reason we have to cut those covers. All right. So back there, you can see those two lines. You can see our coils right there. They're the ones with the red tipped connectors. There's 4 of them on this side, 4 on the other. This is a V8. And then those 2 hoses back there that are aluminum. Right there. That cover has to sneak between those lines and those coils. That's why we trimmed that cover. A lot of people don't put the beauty covers back on because you really can't notice the coils on here in the first place. But this came this way, so I'm going to return it to my customer this way. But I'm also going to make it easier for myself or the next person who works on this to take that cover off. Get you guys back where I had you. All right, so I want to cover one last thing. If you guys are working underneath the hood of a GMC or Chevy pickup, you're going to notice that each truck has some weird stoppers. I'll make sure I didn't lose those. They are rubber squares that go on the stoppers for the hood. think I set them up. Just like I said. Okay, so these are little rubber blocks that they put on the spring here for your hood. Whenever you're doing a project that you need hood access, you need to remove these, because what happens is those rubber blocks limit how much that hood is open. So this is roughly where it would be with the rubber blocks right here. If I take the rubber blocks off, watch how much farther I can go up with the hood. That 3 inches is night and day difference when you're working on a car. Now, if you're going to pull the motor, that isn't near enough. You might have to pull the hood if you're going to pull the motor off, or you're at least going to have to take one of the arms off and tip the hood all the way up. That's if you were going to pull the motor. For the most part, if you take those stops out, it'll give you enough room when you're working on coils or doing a throttle body. It gives you a little bit more room underneath the hood, especially if you're standing on a crate or something, to get into the engine compartment a little deeper. So next week, guys, let's transition into our wrap up here. Next week, we're going to be doing the throttle body cleaning on this and on Big Red. You guys have seen Big Red on the channel before. I did that truck as a debut, but we haven't done much with it. There's a lot of stuff coming up for Big Red. Crazy amount of stuff coming up for Big Red. So the more we get going on Big Red, the more we'll do, and the more we can actually get some of these projects done. I do need to wrap this guy up. The reason why I'm pushing to wrap him up is I've got about 2 months left before winter kind of bites in on me, maybe a month. And before winter bites in, I need Big Red done. I need Crimson Vortex done, and I may have Crimson Vortex sold before winter. So that's what's going on. I might have Big Red sold to the point that it's going to be out of my hands and into a new ownership. But in order to get Crimson Vortex sold, Big Red has to be finished. That includes struts. If I'm going to do a leveling kit, anything I'm going to do suspension-wise or alignment, those all have to be done before I get rid of Crimson Vortex. Also, Crimson Vortex, I've got a steering pitman arm that has to be replaced. It could use a new tune-up, possibly some new shocks. Those are all things that it would need to make it 100% laser out to where it would be 100% reliable for the next owner. I may be selling it to a friend, which means I'm going to make sure it's right before it leaves. I will not sell him something that's questionable. That is not how I do business. So, guys, it's been a really good video. We covered a lot of stuff. We went over quite a few different things. I know some of you guys will catch this back on replay. If you guys are, make sure you guys hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It really does help the channel, does help us grow. I am going to be looking at possibly making some clips. So what I'm going to probably try to do is end my streams here within an hour and a half. And then I want to spend another maybe hour or so doing clips for you guys for the week. That's kind of my goal. So that's what I'm going to work on here once I end this stream. I'm going to work on a few clips for next week. Also, guys, we are growing. Any more that we could do to kind of get that going, that's kind of going to be the goal for the future. Is I really wanted this channel to be above 5K before December. I don't know if I'm going to reach that goal. I really don't. We're gaining subs, but we're gaining kind of slowly. So I'm hoping to kind of boost that with some clips. some of those I'm going to do as pre-record videos, and then I'm just going to upload them. So, but guys, thank you for all the support. Thank you guys for tuning in. Check out our 7 p.m. stream tonight where I go over the news topics. I recap what we did here, and we kind of get into the week's news a little bit. Also, guys, we are in the process of starting our new channel. The new channel will be at the cross today. If you type in the @ symbol and then at the cross today, you guys will find our new channel. Make sure you guys go over there and subscribe. When we hit the ground running, we do want to launch really hard. So I'm working on doing some pre-record videos for that and just trying to get everything up and going. I know today was really slow. I also know it's football season. So when people's teams are playing, my views kind of get a little limited, but I know a lot of you guys will catch this on the replay. So thank you guys for tuning in. And as always, guys, I'll see you on the next one.